All right, we are live here on GrowThink's YouTube channel. If you're out there, thanks for joining. I got my pal Jeff Sokol. Today we're going to be talking about exiting your business while you're still running the business. By the end of this video, you're going to have a good idea of what that could look like for you, what it takes, how to build real financial freedom while still running your business so you're not waiting for some final exit to finally enjoy the life that you've built. And it doesn't matter if you're 45 or 65 or 75. This is good foundational information. So if your business is booming or it's just steady, the truth is you don't need to sell your company to create an exit. You just need a good strategy. So today I got my fellow growth thinker, Jeff Sokol, our investment management at GT Investment Management, gtria.com if you're looking for a good financial advisor or just some financial advice. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tim. And I like the points that you're making there. We always talk about exit planning. Whenever I have this conversation with a business owner, they'll fire back at me like, "Oh, I'm not selling."
Yeah,
It's like that scene from Wolf of Wall Street. It's like
right.
we're not talking about selling the business. We're talking about flexibility,
Yeah.
optionality, and maximizing value. So that's what the planning process is. We don't know the outcome when we go into it. We're just fishing around to find the best way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that scene from Wolf of Wall Street. So funny. I'm not
That's a good
leaving.
one.
So I figured we could dispel a few myths, but before we do that, uh, most business owners that we speak to a lot of them, and they
hmm
essentially the statistic is that about 80% of a business owner's net worth is tied into their business. And that's because in many cases, their business is their number one asset. Naturally,
hmm
it's where they invest all their time, effort, and energy. And of course, they hope that at some point they can cash out. Uh, but that's not always the case because statistically, about 25 to 30% of businesses listed actually sell. So there's a real risk that your business may not sell for a variety of reasons. We haven't spoke, we don't know who you are, but let's just assume that you have a 30% statistic chance of selling your business. That's not great. Those aren't great odds. However, every single day you go to work, every day you're making money, every day you're earning a paycheck, every day you're creating some wealth. So today's conversation is less about the big exit and it's more about exiting while you run the business. And maybe if you don't even sell your business, you can still exit. So, what are some myths when you think about this topic, or you kind of hearing me riff, that business owners should understand?
I think the biggest thing is you see this a little bit in the real estate market. Like Redfin and Zillow are really good at they send you what your house is worth
It's a good,
and
great point.
they'll inflate it by like 5 or 10 or 15 or 20%. Like this house is a fair market value of 1.8 million and it's going to sell for like 1.2 or 1.3 and
Yep.
um, it just gives you this false sense of security
Mm-hmm.
that you think you're worth more money than you are. It's like when markets are at all-time highs and everyone has a big 401k balance, you'll see consumer spending go higher,
Yeah.
even though they're not retired and that's not an actual liquid source of cash right now.
Mm-hmm.
A business is even more illiquid than some of these other asset classes because the process to actually structure a deal between a buyer and seller could take months, it could take years, depending on the size and scale of the operation. So if you feel like your business has a fair market value of 10 million, and that's the number that you're going off of
Mm-hmm.
to make all of your decisions with, like which higher education institution or how much loans you can take out to support something, you might just get yourself into hot water. Versus what you're saying, if you can diversify some of your assets outside of the business and create other cash flow opportunities or just have a more insulation from if something were to happen, either economically or to your business, or if there's a big lawsuit or whatever it is, then you're just never going to be in that situation where you have to sell the thing for pennies on the dollar because something else came up.
Yeah. I have a scenario where a business owner client said, I don't need to exit the business. I can actually walk away from it right now. I made a lot of money in 30 years running this business. I was smart, worked with a financial advisor. They set me up and got my portfolio rocking. I invested in a couple pieces of real estate, but I still want to run this thing because it's an identity. It's
Mm,
just not it's not their number one form of retirement. It's not their number one form of what they need to live on. And this person said, I'm really just running this for fun at this point. And it was it was a highlight, you know. I was like, yeah, that would be a great goal if you could just kind of get yourself to that point. Um, let's say you're past the startup phase, maybe even past the early growth stage, and you have enough predictability in your business. You know this more or less what you're going to make. Let's consider the average business owner making anywhere between a quarter million to $500,000 a year for a small business, uh, pre-tax. What would you recommend them to do as like strategy number one?
Yeah, well, the if you have a couple of streams of income, or if let's say, when a few minutes ago you said if it's 80% of their net worth, then it's a little bit of a different dynamic versus, let's say, the business is 20 or 30% of your net worth. You
Mm-hmm.
have some cash flowing real estate, you have an investment portfolio, you have, other areas of your portfolio are going to create relative strength for you if there is a downturn or something. If one sleeve of your portfolio gets hit, you'll
Right.
still be doing well somewhere else. So in that scenario, then I think, of course, stick around, keep doing what you're doing. Um, that dynamic, we sometimes refer to it like it's a lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
business at that point. As long as you've removed yourself to the point where operationally things are going well, you're still getting your salary and your tax benefits and all the benefits of being a business owner, like in the tax code. That's a great way to do it. We just want to make sure that that business is, from the perspective of a potential buyer in the future, at a point of maximum value. So you don't have to sell it now. You could, but you don't have to. You could
Right.
sell it in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, as long as what we have is a structured plan that is optimized on all fronts. Then, of course, by all means, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah. Um, you know, classic small business, let's say 20 to 50 employees, you're most likely going to have a 401k set up, and you know, you're kind of maxing that thing out, and you should have a good idea, most business owners do, of what kind of profit they're going to be facing towards the end of the year. And firsthand, I mean, I could tell you through my own experiences, you get into Q4 and you start having a pretty good idea of how profitable you're going to be. And then you start scrambling a bit, which is, I got to start putting money in other places. One of the natural places to put it is to reinvest in the business. But, you know, if a business owner is going to be looking at, let's say, anywhere between a quarter to $1 million in that zone of pure profit, uh, what would you recommend they do with that?
Yeah, that's a great point. Um, Tim, and you and I have spoken about this before.
Oh,
We
yes.
we it's very easy to neglect the the monthly or quarterly projecting process.
Yeah.
And then this always happens. I get a phone call, like it could be February or March every year. Like, Jeff, I can't believe this tax bill I got. What can I do? And now we're talking about the previous year, where your options are fewer in retrospect. So I think from a starting point, you should do this maybe to kick off each year, have a generalized plan, and then revisit it quarterly. Then you can also chip away at what taxes you do owe, so you don't get that giant bill, but you can do it in 3 or 4 or 5 installment payments. But then with the proceeds, I think what you're going to ultimately do is have a little bit of a mix. Maybe some of it is reserved for some bonuses, pay the people what they're worth. You mentioned the 401k plan. As a business owner, you can tuck away a lot more than the average person
Mm-hmm.
through like a solo 401k or a self-employment plan, or a defined benefit. Um, so you can put away like 70,000, and then you get the tax deduction on that. With the defined benefit, you can do a couple 100,000. Um, I,
Let's talk about
I
that a little bit further. The
okay, yeah,
defined
yeah.
benefit, yeah.
Well, a defined benefit plan, they're a little bit challenging administratively to set up, so I don't want to bore the people here on a Friday morning. Um, I think that the key point is you can put away as much as $200,000 for yourself, and then you get that as a tax deduction in the current year. So if you do that for several years and then you let it ride, let's say you get like an 8 or 10% return, which is historical average for the S&P 500. If you do that for 10 or 15 years, then one box you can effectively check off is you'll know that even if you have some tough times between now and your retirement, you know that there's a big source of liquidity when you do retire.
Yeah.
So I always think that's a good idea, just so that you're not, you always know that you're going to ride off into the sunset at some point here. So I like the defined benefit plan for that. I think the solo 401k where you can put away like 60 or 70,000 is a good way to do it. And then in down income years, you can do a Roth conversion so that that money will never be taxed again. Like the defined benefit plan or the solo 401k, those will come out as distributions as ordinary income taxes. Could be 10 or 20%. It's hard to project. Um, but in a Roth, it'll never be taxed again.
Hmm.
And that's it, we can do the scenario modeling to figure out which one is higher net proceeds. But
Yeah.
some people just love doing the Roth. I'm this way too. I just love the feeling of knowing, even if I could do it, I could save a few bucks here or there. I love the feeling of never having to pay taxes again. So, sometimes the emotion of it matters more than the numbers themselves.
Very often. Very often the emotion. And we did a video on the true cost of inaction,
Mm,
which was all about the emotion, because we don't take action a lot of times, not because of logical reasons. If you look at pure logic, logic would say do this thing, but we resist because of all these factors. Business owners a lot of times are dealing with cash flow. Um, I've seen this comment. I don't know exactly how to phrase this, but let's have some fun with this.
hmm
Business owners having a down year, especially mature businesses, the next stage after maturity is decline if they don't start innovating. So these mature businesses start losing clients, losing to technology, losing to competition, just because they weren't prepared to compete in the new world and rested on their laurels, the status quo, and all that kind of stuff. So uh, we saw a situation very recently where the business owner lost a major client and he decided to fund payroll himself personally. So, what does this person do? They go into their 401k, they start liquidating, pulling out the cash, hoping that things will turn around. By the skin of this person's teeth, they were able to turn it around, but that's not always the
Wow.
case. That is
Okay.
not always the case. They just went for it. And I don't even know
Yeah.
if this person had like a really strong plan. They just had the belief that they could pull it around, and there's something to that. But
Yeah.
how does
Fair
that make you
enough.
feel? As in your line of work, how do you react to that?
It's it sounds crazy, but a lot of business owners are crazy, and it's that self-belief
Yeah,
that has propelled them to where they are. So
right. The forever
it's
optimist, right?
yeah, I mean you have to be. You really have to be. The odds are so stacked against you
Hmm.
that to really make something happen in this world in private enterprise is incredibly impressive. So you couldn't even call it a false sense of confidence. It is earned, but there are other options that I feel like would have been available to this person, either through like a debt syndication
Right.
or some small business loan or something they could have done that might have been more favorable in terms of their like terms and conditions for
Hmm.
accessing that capital to get to the next stage. Versus going into your 401k, you probably get dinged 10% for an early withdrawal. So you're only getting 90 cents on those dollars you take out. And you're sacrificing your future long-term security for something that is uncertain in the short term.
Hmm.
So I have some negative reaction to that I'm sure there's a better way to have done it.
Yeah.
But you got to be sensitive when you're talking to the business owner because it's like this narrow one-track mind. They know what they need to do. They don't care. They're gonna make it happen.
Hmm.
So, you gotta respect the business owner, but just I hope they know there's other options out there.
Absolutely. And yeah, again, there's something to be said for reinvesting to the business, but it doesn't always pan out. And if it doesn't pan out, then this person has a major deficit, and it's really at the time that they lost, and that's the key. So you're all about compounding.
hmm
Compounding is important. It's almost like it's the small, consistent habits that are going to pay off versus the big win. And a lot of business owners are always shooting for that big win, which really maybe what they should do is just have the small, consistent habit of having a good diversified portfolio. I mean, what would you recommend there?
Yeah, this is something I've learned as I get a little bit older is we all have our own paths in life. I'm very comfortable as an investor.
Mm-hmm.
I think most business owners have this thing, whatever it is, they want to be the one to go make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
They like being in control. They know they can trust themselves and their close inner circle. And the idea of investing elsewhere just doesn't make sense to them.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like earned money. When I look at my portfolio and I see a good play working out nicely, I can take credit for that in my own way. Like the dopamine is going and my financial plan's on track. I rarely see that with business owners. They'll look at that portfolio up 10 or 20% and they're like, what, it's monopoly money. This
Right.
this isn't real. I want to know what's going on in the business. Um, I've known real estate guys that are like that too.
Mm.
If they don't own and operate the property, then they don't want to be involved. They're fully in the asset class of real estate. They
Yeah.
think the stock market is crazy.
Like they want to be hands-on versus just investing in REITs per se.
Totally,
Mm.
totally, completely. And even the idea of the stock market, like it just doesn't click somehow. So there's the broader point I'm trying to make is that I have a sensitivity to the fact that people have a particular way that they want to do things. It's just really about knowing your options. And I think the point that resonates with the business owner is if you have a really strong foundational plan that you know is on track, even if you have a terrible down year or a few bad years in a row, but because you've diversified and built this resiliency in your overall strategy, what happens is you ultimately become a better operator of your business because you're not having those
Yeah.
sleepless nights.
Yeah.
Like you just have
Right.
a clarity and a comfort in knowing that you're on track
Mm-hmm.
and you just make better decisions and then you ultimately probably grow your business better and faster as a result. So I think that's really the key point is you're going to be a more effective operator of the business by having this more coherent, holistic strategy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as we round this out here, I wanted to get your reaction to, we help business owners define their freedom date. And this is where, maybe your 60s in that ballpark, been running your family owned business, very common for 30 something years. You know, it's time to start getting out, but you just don't know how or when. We challenge our business owners, and we have a workshop called the Exit Ready Sprint. It's a 3 hour exit readiness workshop. If you're interested, we'll put information down below. But we challenge you and encourage you at the same time to pick a date. And we have a client that very successfully had done this, got themselves out by their date. What do you think about a freedom fund on
Mm,
top of a freedom date, where we say, look, we're going to build a freedom fund while you're growing your business, and this freedom fund is going to get you to where you need to be, so you can walk away from the business whenever the time comes. And if you sell it, awesome, that's icing on the cake, but it's not because you had to sell it. What do you
I
think?
love it. I love it. It's great branding. I'm a proud patriot. Just hearing the word, it sounds nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you do. It's like you do have to trick yourself sometimes.
Hmm.
The business owners that they want to do this and they're thinking about it, and we'll get back to you next month. And you do see these things drag on, and people just somehow finding a way to put it off for so long that it just at some point is it even going to happen? Like, are
Hmm.
you guys ever going to do this? That we do sometimes encounter people in their 70s. They've thought they would have been retired by now, but they just haven't found the right moment. So it's a very good point. Defining a date, which is, you can move the goalposts here. It's just the first step is defining when you want to do it. And then to make it more real, the Freedom Fund, I love that concept because then if you have your Freedom Fund all built out
Hmm.
and then the date comes but you don't feel ready or you want to do it sooner, you want to do it later, just by having that extra cash stashed aside, now you know you're in a position of strength and leverage. You're not going to be a forced seller. You can be a little bit more opportunistic at that point. So I think that's a great way to start. It's like you can dip your toes in instead of going head first into the deep end.
Yeah.
You can figure out an approximate date and approximately how much cash you would need to be free and secure, and you can go from there.
That's great. Well, we were going to put your contact information down below. If you're out there in the audience watching this, you got value, reach out to Jeff Sokol. He's in the Los Angeles area. He loves coffee. He needs it because he has a new baby, and I'm sure he needs the extra caffeine.
Always.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
Like getting out of the house.
It's a pleasure. We'll see you on the next one. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. Bye.